Well, third time's the charm. Chapter 9. Daisy couldn't see anything inside the quiet barn. The door had swung shut behind her. There were no lights on, and even if there had been, she would have not mattered. She curled herself up beneath a pile of fresh hay, curled up into a ball, and as hiding places go, the barn was as good as her blanket or her spot under the bed back home. But it would do for now. The barn door inched open with a creak, just enough that Daisy could hear the rain falling heavily outside. Sign. This was no gentle pitter-patter like before. She knew that if she were to peek out, she wouldn't see a rainbow, but dark rain clouds, sheets of water falling through the sky, and people screaming and running for cover. Daisy! Are you in here? Daisy recognized Millie's bark. She must have seen Millie run into the barn and come looking for her. No, Daisy answered. A minute later, she felt the straw around her stir. As Millie came sniffing, she got closer and closer until she could feel Millie's wet nose on her snout. There you are, Millie said. Are you okay? Daisy shook her head, seeing piles of golden hay falling into piles around her. Of course not, she said. How could I be? Didn't you hear that thunder? Didn't you see that lightning? I knew a storm was coming. I just knew it. You're right, said Millie. It's raining pretty hard right now. But is that what's really got your fur in a bunch? What do you mean, asked Daisy? Millie went on a slow huff. Well, even before it started raining, you seemed nervous. Daisy slumped. Millie knew her too well. The truth is, Daisy began, I don't want to get adopted, she finally blurted out. It felt good to get it off her chest. You don't? Why didn't you tell me? Millie asked. It's because getting adopted is your dream, Daisy cried. You can't wait to find a forever family, and I didn't want to ruin it for you. So I pretend to be excited too, but then Luna said what's right for each of us might be different choices. I knew that was true. That's why I stopped hanging out with you, so you could be adopted without me. But still, I didn't want that to happen, and I didn't want to go anyplace new either. For a while, it all seemed far away. But when we got there, all these people crowded around us. And when that lady and her son asked if we were available for adoption, it was all too much. And then it started raining, Millie filled in. Right, said Daisy. So I ran away. Daisy felt sure that Millie was upset with her hiding the truth for so long, and for being such a scaredy cat. It surprised her when Millie snuggled in close to Daisy instead and said, I'm sorry. Daisy lifted her head, confused. You are? What for? I thought getting adopted would be a dream for both of us. I'm sorry, I didn't know. How you felt? It's all right if you like things the way they are. Oh, thank you, Millie, Daisy said, feeling understood for the first time. Time, Malik. Some things will change, even though you'll find your forever family. Daisy, you are a part of my forever family, Millie replied. Being with you is more important than being adopted by some people. Feeling overwhelmed with happiness, Millie shut her eyes and pressed her head against Daisy. If you don't want to get adopted, what do you want? Daisy didn't hesitate too long. I want us both to stay at the rescue with Danny and Ron. But right now, it might be too late. What makes you say that? Asked Millie. Daisy pointed out how Danny patted them on the heads when he was talking about finding homes for their pup, and the troubles they'd gone to make the bandanas. He even brought Aline here, she said. The only reason my old trainer would be here is to help me settle into a new home. Millie went on a low rumble sound in her throat. Bye, Jonah! When you put it all together like that, she said, maybe you're right. Before either of them had the chance to be silent, the barn door swung open and someone flicked a switch. Suddenly, the room was filled with light. Come inside, everyone! Martin called out. As crowds of people moved into the barn, the rescue staff brought in dogs from other enclosures. Danny spotted Millie and Daisy half buried in hay. There you are, you little rascals, he said. He clapped his hands together. They both came to kneel at his side. It looks like both of you discovered the little surprise party we had planned for you ahead of its time. Oh well, you might as well come out and enjoy it now. Daisy glanced at Millie. What's a surprise party? Let's go find out, Millie replied. Suddenly the two dogs climbed up the haystack they were huddled in together. They launched into the clearing in the middle of the room. Daisy couldn't believe her eyes. Instead of a storage space, the barn looked more like a doggy heaven. In one corner there were piles of brand new toys, plushies, squeaky toys, ropes, tennis balls, and frisbees. In another corner were bags of all their favorite treats and what looked like doggy cupcakes. In the middle were big, oversized, fluffy beds and fresh bowls of water. Above it was a banner stretching from one side of the railing to another with a sign on the wall. Beneath it said, Happy Gotcha Day, Daisy and Millie, from your forever family at Danny and Ron's rescue. Is this really for us? Daisy asked. I think so, said Millie. Look! She used her snout to point at a few poster-sized photos that had been taped to the barn walls. One of them was Daisy and Millie curled up by the fireplace. Another one of them was them in the laundry room, tangled up in t-shirts. And the last was Daisy and Millie when they were rescued in California. Louisiana. After the people had finished piling into the barn and closed the door firmly behind them, Ron and Danny made their way to the front of the room where someone had built a makeshift stage. Ron called out, If I could have everybody's attention! Suddenly the chatter in the room died down, and all eyes turned to Ron. Thank you for coming to today's adoption event, ladies and gentlemen, he said. It turned out to be soggier than a little, we hoped. But we're not going to let a little rain stop us from showing these amazing dogs some love, aren't we now? The crowd clapped and cheered, and the other dogs who were now roaming freely in the barn wagged their tails. Danny added, When we first started taking dogs in after Hurricane Katrina, we had no idea what adventure we were in for. But here we are, several years and 1,000 dogs later, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Ron nodded. Some of you have been lucky enough to be adopted by one of our dogs. Everyone laughed. Daisy spotted Elmer and his family near the front of the room. The little boy, Benny, held Elmer in his arms and gave him a cuddle. No, but some very special dogs become permanent members of our family, said Danny. And We wanted to celebrate two of our favorite canine family members right now. With that, Danny kneeled down and looked right at Daisy and Millie. "Come here, girls," he said, waving them forward. He blew a few quick air and patted his thigh. Daisy patted right next to Millie as she joined Danny on the stage. He gave each of them a treat and then turned right to the crowd. Daisy and Millie were the first two dogs we ever rescued. Because of what they went through, Daisy did have some struggles to work with. Thank you, Aline, for helping us out with her. Aline raised her head and smiled. "My pleasure," she said. But we realized the best thing for Daisy was to keep her life stable and never ever make her leave a home she loved again. She and her best friend Millie will always have a home with us. So when you say you support our work by adopting a dog or donating to the rescue, you know that you're making it possible for any dog who comes through our doors to have a home when they need it. Does he really mean that? Daisy asked. "Can't you see?" Millie replied. Daisy followed Millie's gaze as she looked out to the crowd. She saw Gladys and the staff of groomers, the college volunteers, Dr. Kim, Aline, and even Luna peeking her nose out from behind a pile of toys. And of course, Danny and Ron stood behind them like proud parents. "We didn't have to try and find a forever family," Millie began. "Because we already have one," Daisy finished. She realized she hadn't been worried about nothing. She and Millie had been adopted by Danny and Ron and everyone at the rescue. Suddenly, the rain outside didn't seem so bad. In fact, everything seemed as bright as a rainbow.